Hello and welcome. Today we're diving into something that, let's be honest, probably affects every single couple out there, the blame game. We're going to look at a really simple but powerful shift in your thinking that can totally transform how you and your partner handle disagreements.
You know the feeling, right? It's that all too familiar moment. A simple comment is made, and suddenly the walls go up. Voices get a little louder, someone brings up something that happened 6 months ago, and whatever you were originally talking about is, well, it's completely gone. It stops being a conversation and turns into a battle.
But what if I told you that the person you're actually fighting with isn't the person you love? What if the real enemy in the room is something else? That's the big idea we're going to unpack today. The problem isn't your partner. The problem is ego.
So let's get into it. When we're in the middle of a heated argument, what's actually driving us? It almost always comes down to these two big forces pulling in opposite directions: ego and love.
This right here breaks it down perfectly. You see, the ego sees any kind of disagreement as a threat. It's that little voice whispering in your ear, "Don't you dare back down. You need to get the last word in." And, of course, the big one, "You have to be right." But love is playing a completely different game. Love doesn't care about who wins. It just wants to understand.
Let that sink in for a second. Ego wants to win. Love wants to understand. This is everything. The strongest relationships aren't built on keeping score of who's right and who's wrong. They're built on connection, on feeling understood. And when the ego is driving, all of that gets pushed aside for pride.
Okay, so what does this actually look like day to day? Let's walk through a super common scenario and see just how fast an ego-driven reply can turn a small spark into a huge fire.
So it starts with Sarah. She's sharing how she feels. Notice how vulnerable that is? I felt worried. She's not trying to start a fight, she's reaching out to her partner Mark, trying to connect.
But Mark doesn't hear her vulnerability. He hears criticism. And that's the ego's cue to jump in. So instead of just saying, "Oh, I'm sorry you were worried," his ego goes on defense. He dismisses her feelings, basically saying she's overreacting. This is a classic ego move: deflect and defend.
And boom, there it is. The cycle is in full swing. Sarah just wanted to be heard, and now she feels completely dismissed. So her frustration builds. And now, you see, the fight isn't even about the phone call anymore. It's about this painful pattern of her feeling ignored.
And right here, this is where it all goes off the rails. The original issue? It's a distant memory. It's been replaced by a full-on ego war. Both Sarah and Mark are just digging in, defending their pride and trying to prove that they are the one who is right.
Now, this cycle can feel totally draining and impossible to break. But here's some really good news. There is a simple, practical tool you can use to stop it in its tracks. Let's call it the ego pause. So the first step, as always, is just noticing. You have to learn to spot your own ego when it steps onto the scene. So ask yourself, in that moment, do you feel this burning, desperate need to be right? Are you fighting to get the absolute last word in? And do you find it almost impossible to say, "I'm sorry," even when you kind of know you played a part?
Seeing these things in yourself isn't a sign of weakness. It's actually a huge strength. It's emotional intelligence at its best. The second you can step back and just observe your own ego, you take away its power. You're not controlled by it anymore. Just that simple act of noticing can change everything.
And now, here is the sentence that can change the game. Imagine if Mark, in that moment, took a breath and said this. Now, the key is how you say it. It can't be sarcastic. It has to come from a real place of self-awareness. You're just honestly sharing what's happening inside you.
So why is this one little sentence so incredibly effective? Well, first, it's like letting the air out of a balloon. It instantly lowers the tension in the room. Second, it shows incredible humility in that you're aware of your own stuff. And most importantly, it brings you both back to the real goal, reminding you that you're on the same team. The goal is connection, not winning.
And all of this leads to the most important principle for healthy conflict. It's about making a conscious choice over and over again to value your relationship more than your need to be right.
This is the big reframe. It's all about changing the question you ask yourself in the middle of a conflict. So you stop asking that dead-end question, "Who is right here?" and instead, you start asking the question that actually leads you somewhere good: "What can we do to understand each other better right now?" It changes the entire focus.
And when you both commit to this, when you both start spotting the ego in yourselves and in each other, the benefits are, well, they're huge. You'll find yourselves listening more deeply, apologizing becomes so much easier, and you'll resolve things faster. But the biggest one of all? You protect that emotional closeness, which is really the heart of the whole relationship.
So, if you remember just one thing from our time together today, please let it be this. The strongest couples aren't the ones who never argue. They're the ones who consistently refuse to let ego run the show. Again and again, they make that choice. Connection over ego.
If this approach really clicks with you and you want more of these kinds of practical tools for building stronger, healthier communication, I really encourage you to subscribe to the Resolve Together channel on YouTube. They have some fantastic content that is all about helping couples make that choice for connection.